The morning I saw a toad, a fat, startled toad trying to climb out of my shower drain. That's when I knew Veronica Sterling had finally gone nuclear. It wasn't just a toad, you understand. It was the only critter left in the whole house still searching for moisture. Because when I turned the kitchen tap, all I got was this pathetic hiss, a dry cough that sounded less like water pressure and more like a dying breath. My 20 acres, the Longview Ranch, land my family's tilled since '48, was bone dry. My prize Black Angus were crowded around the troughs, staring at dust. My half-acre of summer corn looked less like food and more like a row of sad, forgotten feather dusters. I didn't even have to walk out to the main gate to know what happened. I just knew. It had Veronica Sterling's signature all over it. Invisible ink written in pure petty spite. Sure enough, there it was. A perfectly crisp cream-colored envelope, taped to the post of the old rail fence like some kind of passive-aggressive medieval decree. It had the Riverstone HOA's embossed seal, a little fountain motif, ironically printed in this aggressively cheerful turquoise font. The message wasn't cheerful at all. It said, "Water access temporarily suspended pending compliance with Section 4.1 Green Space Aesthetics. Thank you for your cooperation. No warning, no board meeting, no attempt to talk it out, just click. You're dead." Like I was some tenant who forgot to pay the rent, not the legal owner of a working ranch she'd been trying to shut down for years. I didn't take the truck. I was too mad to sit. I walked straight down to that manicured clubhouse, every step kicking up dust that felt like it belonged right back on her pristine welcome mat. The place smelled overwhelmingly of lemon-scented polish and her ridiculously expensive, faintly citrusy perfume. And there she was, the Queen of Riverstone, Veronica Sterling, lounging behind her faux mahogany desk, looking like she was running the Department of Homeland Security. But for yard gnomes, she had this small, satisfied smile, the kind a barn cat wears when it's just found the mouse hole, as I slammed the notice on her desk. "Veronica, what in the hell is this?" She didn't flinch. She just steepled her perfect fingers. "Mr. Riley, your question is answered by the document you just presented. Your land is demonstrably unkempt, violating the aesthetic harmony of the community. The covenants are quite clear." I leaned in, trying to keep the rancher calm and not the exploding volcano, which was proving difficult. "Unkempt? This is a working ranch, Veronica, not a putting green. Did you personally come and measure the aesthetic harmony of my 40-year-old alfalfa patch against your Section 4.1 bylaws?" She actually chuckled. A light, airy sound that didn't reach her cold eyes. She reached under the desk and pulled out a glossy brochure, I swear to God, titled Visual Synergy, Creating the Perfect Suburban Tableau. She pushed it towards me like it was some holy text. "We believe in compliance, Mr. Riley. Perhaps this brochure will guide your aesthetic journey. Now, if you'll excuse me." That was it. That was the moment the anger settled and turned into a cold, hard focus. It wasn't about the dead grass. It was about the property. Veronica had been pushing to acquire the southern edge of my land for what she called the Riverstone Recreational Promenade, a fancy name for a pointless jogging path and a gazebo that no one would use. My refusal to sell was the only thing standing between her and a glowing article in the HOA quarterly magazine. Starving me of water wasn't enforcement. It was a hostile takeover. It was sabotage, pure and simple, and she was counting on the heat and the desperation to make me crumble. What she didn't count on was my petty streak being wider than my land. I drove straight home and called my oldest friend. Fin was one of those guys who'd found God in solar panels and freedom in off-grid living, installing systems for everyone from preppers to hardcore environmentalists. He owed me big time for a midnight rescue back in '99 when his vintage Scout got buried deep in a blizzard drift. I told him what happened, skipping none of the drama, even the toad. He just let out a low whistle over the phone. "Well, hell, Jess," he drawled. "Sounds like it's time to stop drinking their bathwater and start drinking the sky. We're pulling the sun out of the sky and shoving it down their pipes." We met that evening in the barn, the air thick with the smell of old hay and planning. On the back of an empty feed sack, we sketched out the Iron Heart, a solar-powered submersible pump, a deep underground cistern system, and private, dedicated irrigation lines. All within my deeded boundary, All perfectly legal and, most importantly, completely independent of the HOA's grid and, therefore, Veronica's arbitrary power. The Longview Ranch became a covert operations site for the next week. Vin and I worked mostly at night, guided by headlamps and the occasional cold beer. We were digging trenches, laying pipe. Every shovel of dirt felt like an act of defiance, a quiet revolution happening right under their overly aesthetic noses. We tucked every line under existing flower beds and behind the thickets of Texas sage. When the HOA sent their little drone over to snap photos, I'd just wave, a big innocent rancher's smile plastered on my face, letting them think I was slowly baking in the summer sun. Defeated, but I wasn't just working on the pump. While Finn handled the solar array placement, I was down at the county records office, elbow deep in boring, dusty documents. That's when I found the diamond. The HOA didn't own the community water rights. They leased them year to year through a third-party broker, a corporation called Aquamend. And guess what? That lease was coming up for renewal in under 6 weeks. Veronica, in her predictable smugness, had simply assumed automatic renewal. The fine print, however, suggested otherwise. It was a loophole big enough to drive a John Deere through. I filed my application to bid on that lease. No drama, no announcement, just a quiet piece of paper filed away with a receipt. Because sometimes silence isn't just golden, it's the best damn revenge. A couple of days later, the Queen herself paid a visit. She drove up in her white golf cart, wearing sunglasses so oversized they looked like they had been issued by the CDC. She sniffed the air, assessing the status of my slow defeat. "Ready to cooperate, Mr. Riley?" she asked, clipboard in hand, stylus poised. "Sure, Veronica," I said, leaning against the fence, perfectly relaxed. I reached into my pocket and handed her a wrinkled sheet of butcher paper I'd scrawled on. A fake blueprint. It showed where I was going to put in a regulation-height birdbath and a few sad-looking, store-bought azaleas. I labeled it in crude block letters, Project Harmony of Nature and Neighborhood. She nodded, satisfied, not even noticing the mud on my boots. "Excellent. Progress, remember. We are only enforcing the rules for the benefit of the community, Mr. Riley." She zoomed off, thinking she'd successfully defused a bomb. I didn't bother telling her that by the following week, my Ironheart would be online, pulling clean. Independent water straight from the earth to my cistern, my cattle, and my suddenly very perky corn crop. And I definitely didn't mention the expiring lease. Then came the invitation. Veronica, ever the opportunist, sent me an official letter inviting me to co-host the annual Riverstone Harvest Gala. On my land, no less, as a sign of community reconciliation. She was dangling the temporary restoration of my water access as bait, hoping to get a photo op with my authentic ranch backdrop to pad her re-election flyer. I called my lawyer immediately. We accepted the invitation, but we slipped in a few choice words into the contract's addendum. A pay-to-play clause. It stated that any resource used or damage incurred during the event would be compensated at full commercial market rates. Agreed upon in advance. Veronica signed it. The board blindly approved it, and I framed that beautiful piece of legal paper right next to my granddad's rusty old saddle. Both of them, in their own way, symbolized freedom. The day of the Harvest Gala arrived, bringing with it a convoy of SUVs and golf carts, invading my dusty ranch like a pastel-colored army. Veronica, dressed in a new linen jumpsuit, fluttered around the mayor, who was also inexplicably present, giving rehearsed speeches about cooperative spirit and how the HOA had graciously worked out a private agreement with Mr. Riley. I nearly spat out my iced tea. The real fun started around mid-afternoon. It began subtly, a few whispers about the portable restrooms being dry. Then the manicured, HOA-maintained entryway flower beds stopped sprinkling. When someone from the catering crew tried to wash a pitcher, all they got was a desperate gurgle. The HOA's main water system had hit a wall. I stood by the fence, calmly sipping my tea, watching Veronica make frantic calls, her sunglasses pushed up on her head, revealing eyes that were starting to look like she'd swallowed acid. The mayor was looking concerned, asking if there was a backup. That was my cue. I walked up, a picture of helpful, simple-minded hospitality. "Well, Mayor," I drawled, I could show you my setup. I've been running on my own system for a few weeks now. Just for educational purposes, of course. The mayor, sensing a good photo op, anything green and voter-friendly, lit up. I led him and a small, confused crowd behind the barn, where the solar panels glistened like a steel crown, and the pump hummed faintly inside a tidy shed. This is the Iron Heart, I explained, pointing to the gauges. Fully independent. Solar-powered, runs off the aquifer deep beneath my property. No connection to the HOA grid. County permitted too. I handed the mayor a copy of the inspection approval, just in case he wanted a souvenir. Veronica pushed through the crowd, her face crimson. This is sabotage, Jess. You're doing this to humiliate me in front of the mayor. I met her gaze, no anger left, just pure cold clarity. No, Veronica. I'm trying to survive. You shut off my supply. I adapted. You wanted to host your party on my land, I agreed. But I didn't promise to fix your mistakes. The mayor turned to her, his smile gone. Is it true, President Sterling? You suspended Mr. Riley's water access without a hearing? Her stammered response about landscaping discrepancies was drowned out by the murmurs of the crowd. They weren't talking about dry pipes anymore. They were questioning leadership. The gala devolved into a wilted disaster. By the next day, a video of Veronica's meltdown and a moment where she accidentally sprayed herself with warm lemonade was viral. She doubled down, of course. She filed a formal complaint with the county inspector, Lynn, alleging that my solar system violated codes. It was a desperate grasping move. She hoped that bureaucratic snag, some zoning loophole, would force me to shut down my source of independence. What she didn't anticipate was that Inspector Lynn, a no-nonsense woman with a clipboard that looked like it had survived what would take a closer look at Veronica's side of the... Vincy Lynn walked my property, checked the cisterns, and gave me a decisive thumbs up. But before leaving, she paused by the HOA clubhouse. She noticed a hidden thin PVC line, not on any blueprint, routed directly from the clubhouse irrigation system to Veronica's house. It bypassed the community meters completely. Lynn didn't say a word. She just took photos, made notes, and came back the next day with a state audit team. What started as an attempt to shut down my solar pump turned into a full-scale investigation into the Riverstone HOA's financial and water management. They uncovered unauthorized rerouting, misclassified infrastructure funds, and, worst of all, proof of water access being manipulated to target properties not aligned with Veronica's politics. The audit report was damning. When the mayor himself read the findings at a public meeting, the whole room went silent. Then someone shouted, "You mean we paid for her koi pond?" Veronica tried to explain away the siphoning line, claiming it was old, a mistake, but the receipts for the installation, bearing her signature, told a different story. Within the week, a petition circulated, and she was forced to resign by an overwhelming margin. The Queen of Riverstone, the woman who tried to turn the faucets off on 100 neighbors, couldn't even turn the tide of her own downfall. With the board in disarray, I quietly finalized my deal. The water rights lease, the HOA's original lease, was mine, secured for the next 10 years. I wasn't interested in holding the same kind of petty power, though. I met with the new interim president, Martha Olson, a retired librarian who wore denim skirts and carried a spiral notebook, and proposed a different way. We established the Longview Water Cooperative. I offered to supply water at cost to any neighbor who wanted to get off the HOA's unreliable, politically charged system. No more games, no more politics, just clean, sun-powered water. Neighbors I hadn't spoken to in years started coming by, asking about pipe depths and solar batteries. It wasn't just about the water anymore. It was about reclaiming control. We built the new system together, neighbor to neighbor, proving that resilience and community independence are far stronger than any petty tyranny. I still have that original notice Veronica taped to my fence, tucked into a drawer in the barn right next to the receipt for the aquifer lease. I keep it there as a reminder. They tried to choke me out, but instead they gave me a reason to build a deeper well. So, here's the question I want to leave you with. When you look at stories like this, where one person's self-interest leads to the downfall of a whole system, where does the blame truly lie? Is it only with the person who holds the power, like Veronica, Or with the community that allowed her to wield it for so long? And more importantly, if your water was cut off tomorrow, would you fight to get back onto the old, broken system? Or would you find your own independent source? Let me know what you think in the comments below and tell me, what's the pettiest thing your HOA has ever done to you? Don't forget to hit that like button if you appreciate a good revenge story, and subscribe for more tales from the Longview Ranch.